So a couple of days ago, we saw Caitlin Clark be very not happy about a comparison that was made by Reggie Miller. Like, Reggie Miller legitimately compared Caitlin Clark to Payton Pritchard. Comparing Caitlin Clark to Payton Pritchard, which is a wild comparison, by the way. A wild...
Look at that reaction. That's not just disagreement, that's genuine frustration mixed with humor, which is actually the perfect window into how Caitlin Clark handles the absurdity that comes with being the WNBA's biggest name. Because a few days ago, Hall of Famer Reggie Miller made a comparison that had Clark herself responding publicly, and the internet absolutely losing its mind. He compared Caitlin Clark to Payton Pritchard. Not Steph Curry, not Damian Lillard. Payton Pritchard, the Boston Celtics backup guard. And the fallout from that comparison reveals something fascinating about how we talk about women's basketball, lazy analysis, and why Clark's response was actually perfect.
So Caitlin Clark, obviously, buzzer beater. Payton Pritchard goes and hits a first quarter buzzer beater against the Dallas Mavericks. And yeah, Caitlin Clark immediately responds to a Payton Pritchard post with a bunch of emojis. It's like, someone needs to take your phone. The comparison, Reggie Miller looking pretty good right now. In terms of impact women's game versus the men's, it's a horrible comp. That being said, you could do worse than someone who's done a lot less than primetime P. It's like, well, Caitlin Clark is taller than Payton Pritchard. I think that's kind of... they're probably close to the same height. Yeah. This was the response when Caitlin Clark got compared to Payton Pritchard.
So here's what happened. Payton Pritchard hits a first quarter buzzer beater against the Dallas Mavericks. Solid shot, nothing extraordinary for an NBA game. The Celtics' social media posts about it, and Caitlin Clark immediately responds with a string of laughing emoji, just floods the comment section. And the context makes it hilarious, because everyone knew exactly what she was doing. She was clapping back at Reggie Miller's comparison without saying a single word. That's high-level trolling right there. But here's where this gets interesting, beyond just a funny social media moment. The comparison itself exposes a much deeper problem with how analysts approach women's basketball. When Reggie Miller compares the WNBA's Rookie of the Year, who averaged 19.2 points and 8.4 assists while transforming a franchise's entire trajectory, to a bench player averaging 8.9 points in 26 minutes per game, what does that actually say?
Subscribe. We are almost, lads, we're almost back under it. We've been trying hard to fight off the 57.2k. We've been trying so hard to fight it off. We got up to 57.21, and unfortunately, we're almost going back down to 57.2. We've been trying, but yeah, it is one of those funny things where obviously Caitlin Clark is going out of her way to make a joke about it. Obviously, not happy at all about it. And to be honest, why would she be? Why would she be? I don't think, again, it's even like...
Now, let's be fair to the comparison for exactly 1 second. There is a surface-level similarity. Both players can shoot from deep range, both have quick releases, both play with high energy, but that's where it ends. Payton Pritchard is a role player in a system designed around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. He takes open shots, created by elite defenders, collapsing on Boston's stars. His job is to be ready when his number is called. Caitlin Clark is the system. She led the entire WNBA in assists as a rookie, while simultaneously being her team's primary scorer and facing defensive schemes specifically designed to stop her. Every possession, defenses are keying on her movement. She's getting trapped at half-court, doubled off ball screens, and still managing to create for others at an elite level. The Indiana Fever went from 13 wins to 20 wins, and their first playoff appearance since 2016, primarily because of her impact. That's not a Payton Pritchard situation. That's a franchise-altering talent.
Yeah. It is what it is. So, you obviously have the response. They killed me when I said Caitlin Clark has no personality. I was burst out laughing in the middle of my gig. Just the funniest way Caitlin could have addressed the whole thing. You know what? It probably is. People try to say she's not the face of the league. She has no personality. She proves every day she's the funniest person alive. Like, I also do stand by that. I don't think she's no Sid Colson. Like, I'm going to be honest here. She's She's no Sid Coulson. By no means is she a Sid Coulson. She's not. I'm just trying to think in terms of like, you know, the top personalities. I don't think she's quite as good as Aaliyah Boston on the mic. He's damn good at it.
And this is where the lazy comparison thing becomes a real issue. Because you heard it all season long with Caitlin Clark, people who clearly weren't watching games, making surface-level assessments based on box scores or highlight clips. The "she's never been efficient" narrative was everywhere, despite the fact that she shot 41.7% from the field and 34.4% from three as a rookie, while being the primary focus of every defensive game plan. For context, that's more efficient than Steph Curry's rookie season when he shot 46.2% from the field, but only 43.7% from two-point range. And Curry wasn't facing the defensive attention Clark saw. The efficiency criticism ignored that she was taking the highest difficulty shots in the league. She's pulling from 30 feet with defenders draped on her because the shot clock is winding down and she's the only creator on the floor. She's driving into packed paints because the Fever's spacing wasn't great for most of the season. And she's still producing at a level that had her in the Rookie of the Year conversation from day one. But because people weren't actually watching the games, they just looked at shooting percentages and decided she was inefficient. That's the same energy as the Reggie Miller comparison. It's analysis without context, and it does a disservice to what we're actually witnessing.
Like, she doesn't take anything at all seriously in life. And that being said, like, if she's not taking things seriously, that helps with everything. It helps with everything. It helps with public perception. It helps with her dealing with a bunch of the crap. Like, let's be real. If Caitlin Clark took herself too seriously, then she would have broken by now. Let's be completely honest. Like, she would have absolutely broken by now, and that's fine. Like, that's the way it happens, and that's how you kind of have to deal with it when you're in her position, is that you have to be able to joke about things.
Here's what makes Caitlin Clark's response so perfect, though. She didn't write a long post defending herself. She didn't get into an argument about statistics or playstyles. She just dropped laughing emojis on Payton Pritchard's buzzer beater post and let everyone else connect the dots. That's someone who understands the game being played off the court, as well as she understands the one on it. And based on everything we've heard from her teammates and people around the Fever organization, this is completely on brand. By all accounts, Caitlin Clark does not take herself too seriously. She jokes around constantly. She keeps things light, even in high-pressure situations. And that personality trait might be the most valuable thing she brings to the table beyond her basketball skill.
And I will always, by the way, always credit Christy Sides that she was a very good morale coach. I think not one of those players, not only one of those players liked her as a basketball coach, and I think not that I don't think they respected her as a person, I don't think they respected her as a basketball coach, as a basketball mind. Like, you had the starting five who came from, Temi had played all over the world and had played for Cheryl Reeve. Caitlin played for Lisa Bluter. Kelsey Mitchell was at Ohio State. And whatever about Kelsey Mitchell. Then you had Nalissa Smith, who played for Mulkey, and Aaliyah Boston, who played for what's her name? Don Staley. Kayleigh Samuelson played for Gino, and then they get to the league, and it's like, it's Christy Sides. It's Christy Sides.
Think about what this woman dealt with as a rookie. She had the highest expectations of any WNBA rookie in history. She was compared to Michael Jordan's cultural impact before playing a single professional game. She faced physical play that bordered on targeting, the Chennedy Carter hip check, the Diamond B. DeShields flagrant foul, multiple hard fouls that had people questioning if players were going after her specifically. She dealt with the "is she good for the league or bad for the league" discourse that somehow made her responsible for fixing every problem in women's basketball. She had think pieces written about her silence on social issues, her fan base, her impact on attendance, whether she was properly grateful for the players who came before her. And through all of that, she just kept playing basketball and cracking jokes. Her teammates talked about how during those brutal early games under Christy Sides, when the Fever started 1-8 and looked completely lost, Caitlin was the one keeping morale up in the locker room. She was making everyone laugh even when the losses were piling up. That's not someone who takes every criticism personally. or lets the pressure break her. If Caitlin Clark took everything as seriously as the discourse around her, she would have cracked by now. The scrutiny she faced was unlike anything we've seen in women's basketball. But because she can laugh at a Hall of Famer comparing her to a backup point guard, because she can joke about it publicly instead of getting defensive, she stays above the noise.
But yeah, look, this is all just an interesting scenario. It's funny. And look, Caitlin Clark not taking herself seriously at all is the best thing for this. Like, I stand by this again. If Caitlin Clark took everything in life as seriously as everybody else does, like, she would have probably broken. Because let's be real, there's a lot of shit when you're like, oh dear God, like what the hell is going on? Like, I tweeted it out and people were like, oh, if Caitlin doesn't care, why does anyone care? It's like, well, that's not the be all and end all of everything.
Now, about that Christy Sides mention, because this connects to something important about Clark's rookie season. The common narrative is that Sides was a bad coach who held the Fever back, and there's definitely truth that from a tactical standpoint. The rotations were questionable, the offensive sets were basic, the defensive schemes were inconsistent, but multiple players, including veterans who played under elite coaches like Cheryl Reeve and Kim Mulkey, have said that Christy Sides was excellent at managing personalities and keeping the locker room together. And in a season where the Fever had a rookie superstar, a second-year player in Aaliyah Boston, trying to find her role, veterans like Kelsey Mitchell adjusting to suddenly not being the primary option, and a franchise that hadn't been relevant in years, suddenly dealing with sold-out arenas and national attention every night. Maybe that morale coaching was more valuable than we gave it credit for. The Fever didn't implode despite all the pressure. They actually came together, made the playoffs, and looked like a team that genuinely enjoyed playing with each other by the end of the season. That's not nothing.
Pro women's sports, it's like, well, if there was a page that they deem problematic for the other side, and they're pro Caitlin, and Caitlin posted it would cause World War III, and if people like Caitlin doesn't care, it's like, yeah, I know she doesn't care. But I also don't think Caitlin Clark is scrolling on fucking Twitter every day, looking at random people tweeting, unless she's there laughing at it, which, if we're being real, could very well be the case, and just finds all this discourse hilarious. So anyway, yeah, that is the video. See you guys.
But let's get back to the comparison itself, because there's a better conversation to be had here. If you're going to compare Caitlin Clark to an NBA player who actually makes sense, because Payton Pritchard ain't it, and honestly, even Steph Curry isn't quite right despite being the obvious choice. The Steph comparison makes sense from a shooting range and off-ball movement perspective. Both players can pull from 35 feet, both use screens effectively. Both have that quick release that makes them nearly impossible to contest. But Steph Curry, especially in his prime, was playing in a system with Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant for several years. He had elite spacing, elite passing, elite defense around him. His job was to be the best version of himself within a championship infrastructure. Caitlin Clark is building the infrastructure. She's the primary ball handler, the primary scorer, and the primary playmaker. She's responsible for creating offense for everyone else, while also being the focal point of the defense. That's a different job description.
So anyway, yeah, that is the video. See you guys.
The LaMelo Ball comparison is actually closer to accurate. LaMelo is a 6'7" point guard who can score at all three levels, but is primarily focused on creating for others. He's got the flashy passes, the deep range, the ability to take over games when needed, but prefers to get teammates involved. His shooting percentages aren't elite. He's a career 42.3% shooter from the field and 35.5% from three. But he impacts winning because of how he runs an offense and makes everyone around him better. That's much more similar to Caitlin Clark's game than Payton Pritchard's catch-and-shoot role. But even LaMelo isn't perfect because, as mentioned in the clip, he's got some wild decision-making moments that Clark doesn't really have. She's a much higher IQ player in terms of understanding when to take risks versus when to play it safe. So here's the real question this controversy raises. Why do we keep getting lazy comparisons when it comes to women's basketball? And the answer is pretty simple. A lot of analysts, even Hall of Famers like Reggie Miller, aren't actually watching WNBA games closely enough to make informed comparisons. They see highlights, they see stats, and they make surface-level assessments based on incomplete information. Reggie Miller saw that Caitlin Clark shoots from deep and Payton Pritchard shoots from deep, and his analysis apparently stopped there. He didn't consider usage rate, creation responsibilities, defensive attention, or any of the contextual factors that actually matter when comparing players. It's the basketball equivalent of saying two movies are the same because they're both shot in New York, and this happens constantly in women's basketball coverage. Analysts who don't watch full games make sweeping statements about players, teams, and the league that fall apart under any scrutiny. Then, when they get called out, there's this defensive reaction of, well, I'm just trying to bring attention to the league, as if bad analysis is better than no analysis. The WNBA doesn't need lazy comparison. It needs people to actually watch the games and talk about what they're seeing with the same depth and nuance they bring to men's basketball. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to be compared to anyone. Her game speaks for itself if you're actually paying attention. But if you're going to make comparisons, at least make them based on more than surface-level similarities. Here's what this moment really represents. Caitlin Clark responding with laughing emojis isn't just funny, it's her way of saying, I see you, I know you didn't do your homework, and I'm not going to waste energy being mad about it. That's the energy of someone who knows her value and doesn't need validation from analysts who aren't watching her games. And maybe that's the most important thing about this whole situation. The discourse around Caitlin Clark has been exhausting since before she was drafted. Every take, every comparison, every debate about whether she's overrated or underrated, whether her fans are toxic, whether she's good for the league, it's all noise. The signal is what happens on the court. And on the court, she was the best rookie in WNBA history by almost any metric you want to use. She transformed a franchise, she sold out arenas, she made her teammates better, she handled pressure that would have broken most players, and she did it while keeping her sense of humor intact. So when Reggie Miller compares her to Payton Pritchard, she can laugh about it because she knows what she accomplished. The people who watched every Fever game know what she accomplished. The comparison is so far off base that it's not even worth getting upset about, it's just funny. But it should also be a wake-up call for analysts and media members covering the WNBA. If you're going to talk about these players, watch the games, understand the context, put in the work to make informed comparisons instead of lazy ones based on superficial similarities. The league deserves better than that. The players deserve better than that. And the fans who actually watch the games definitely deserve better than that. Because here's the thing about Caitlin Clark specifically, we're watching something special. We're watching a player who can legitimately change the trajectory of the entire league the way LeBron James changed the NBA when he entered. Not because of hype or marketing, but because of actual basketball impact combined with cultural relevance. That's worth paying attention to properly. And if you can't be bothered to watch the games closely enough to understand what makes her special beyond she shoots from far away, then maybe just don't make the comparison at all. Because Payton Pritchard is a nice player, he's a solid NBA rotation piece. But comparing him to Caitlin Clark is like comparing a good cover band to the artist who wrote the original song. Sure, they're both playing music, but the level of creativity and impact is completely different. So what do you think? Was Reggie Miller just trying to give Caitlin a compliment that came out wrong, or is this part of a bigger problem with how analysts approach women's basketball? And more importantly, who would you compare Caitlin Clark to if you had to pick an NBA player? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you appreciated the breakdown, hit that subscribe button because we're still fighting to stay above 57th and could use the support. Let's actually watch these games and talk about what we're seeing instead of making lazy comparisons based on highlights.